Hello, welcome back. I'm Brandon Rush, and welcome to the Buckle Up Podcast universe with Brandon Rush and Mama Rush. We are doing well with our numbers. I want to show you guys these numbers real quick. Hold on 1 second. So we have 8,728,000. Pretty much, I'll just do that number right down. But yeah, look at that, 8,728,000. I'm excited about that. We're reaching our goals. I had to go with Gangster's Paradise for this because I thought it was really good, but that's my dancing, man. We're doing all right. We're doing all right. But today we have on my cousin Jeffrey Zeigler, who is an accomplished cellist, excuse me, sorry. My mouth is a little afflicted this morning, but he's an accomplished cellist who is world renowned. And so I'm excited to have him on here today, and I'll be having him log in here in just a second. So my goal was to hit 10 million. We are very, very close. So we're going to keep pushing. The Buckle Up Podcast universe is a movement, and we're happy for all the guests that we've had on that have made this show truly special and successful. And 18 countries around the world that we're currently in, and we are in 18 countries, 182 cities around the world. This Buckle Up Podcast universe is reaching right now. So that makes me happy that so many people from around the world are tuning into the show. I mean, to have 18 countries alone is just a blessing and amazing. So we are excited for all that is happening. Pause it real quick. Recording. And then here we go. And Jeffrey has joined. Jeffrey.
Hello.
Hey, great to see you, cuz.
Hey, great to finally meet you.
Yeah.
Almost in person.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you like in person via Zoom too, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. Where are you zooming in from? LA still?
No, right now in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, with my mom. My mom's on here too. She's just using her photo.
Oh, hello, Mama Rush.
Hi, Jeffrey. How are you?
I'm good.
I've heard.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I heard so many wonderful things about you, and I can't wait for you to tell the Buckle Up Podcast universe all about it.
Okay. Well, I hope I don't disappoint.
Oh,
Jeffrey, you definitely won't disappoint, man. I'm so excited to finally get a chance to talk to you. You meant so much to my dad, and I appreciate how you. I'm gonna have to ask you. I'm probably gonna have, give me a couple seconds here. Sorry. Welcome to the Buckle Up Podcast universe with Brandon Rush and Mama Rush. I'm excited to see you too, because I'm actually officially getting a chance to talk to you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's Jeffrey. My dad was always trying to find family. He did everything in his power to always try and find family. And whenever he said, "Hey, I found my cousin Jeffrey out here," he told me as much as he could before he passed away. But I was hoping you can even tell the audience. But you're an accomplished cellist first. Tell us about yourself first, and then we can get to that because there's a lot here.
Yeah, I play the cello.
but you don't just play the cello. You're like a world-renowned cellist at that. Is it called cellist or is it no?
Yeah, cellist. Yeah. I'm a cellist, concert cellist. Let's see. I don't know where you want to begin.
Okay. Well, we can begin. Honestly, I guess we'll take it back. Well, there's so many different places we can start. Well, let's talk about what you do with how you got started into being this, because now you're world-renowned cellist at that. So what, it's your story, because we're going to go through it all. Whatever you're willing to tell us today is great. Or even you and dad meeting too works too, because we can start there and then we can go to the back. We can go any which way.
You know, that's what I love about like even the circumstances that brought me to your dad. You know, telling that story, it's hard to know if you should start chronologically, start from the middle, or start from the end and work your way backwards, and that's probably just kind of a common theme, you know, that I found with just all of this research. I think, you know, maybe what I should do is I'm going to back up about 25 years.
Perfect.
So I was actually, time keeps on moving forward. So was it 25 years or 30 years? The number keeps on going up.
Yeah.
Geez. That's.
If you have to take a call, I can pause it.
So, actually, would you mind pausing it for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Not a problem, Jeffrey. Hold on 1 second. I got you. You're good. You're good to go. I had it
Sorry
on
about
pause.
that.
I just
All
cut it back on. No, you're fine. Yeah, Jeffrey, it's your whole story, man. So you have as much time as you want.
Wait 1 second. I got to get my audio back.
Okay. You actually sound better without the headphones in, to be honest, but it's up to you.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, you don't need. I can hear you perfectly. I can actually hear you better now.
Okay.
Wait, Jeffrey, you can hear me?
Oh,
yeah, your sound's on. I can hear you. Wait, your sound's off now. Now you're good.
okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
perfect.
Okay,
Loud and clear.
Good. I
That's
think I just
perfect.
confused the computer.
That's all good. You're fine.
Yeah, good. So sorry about that. We're having problems with our oven, and I've been playing phone tag, and so I just wanted to grab it.
Oh, yeah, you're good. You're fine. You're completely fine.
So yeah, backing up to about when I was in high school.
Okay. Which is where, Jeffrey?
I'm sorry?
Where were you at high school too? What state?
I grew up in California.
Okay.
Bay Area. Yeah, I grew up in Fremont.
Okay.
A very large, small town in the East Bay, Southeast Bay. And, I grew up with, my parents and my big brother. And it was always the four of us. We didn't really know anyone on my father's side of the family. There were some half brothers that we were aware of. We knew that our dad was born in South Carolina, but grew up in Philadelphia, actually.
Okay.
But we were very disconnected from that. And on my mother's side of the family, my mother's Japanese.
Okay. Wow.
And that's my parents met in Japan. And she was, disowned from the family when she married my dad. Yeah. So we weren't really in touch with them either. So, the sense in our family was always the four of us as the family unit. And I was always jealous of my classmates because they would go to grandmother's house for Thanksgiving and things like that. And we didn't do any of that. It was just the four of us, really. And out of nowhere, this woman kind of appeared, and her name was Bernice Perry. And she was in town because for a bridge tournament. She was an avid bridge player. I eventually figured out she was also a really brilliant person. It made sense that she was so serious about bridge. But she made it a point to reach out to my dad, and she was at that point probably in her mid 80s and living in Mount Vernon. And I was just, I don't know, I was immediately, I just wanted to get to know her more and learn more about the family, because she was that person. I guess every family, I feel like there's that one person to kind of keep tracks of everything, and that was her. And she kept, in touch with everybody, and et cetera, et cetera. So when I went to college, I went to school at the Eastman School of Music, which is in Rochester, New York, upstate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so she kind of became the grandmother that I never had.
Yeah.
So I was going to her house for Thanksgiving and things like that. And when I was there, she would tell me about the family history, the Fridays, going back to George Washington Friday and Carrie Hauser Friday. And I just couldn't keep track of everything, because of course, unlike nowadays when everyone they get married and they have one kid, back then I had 13 kids, oh my God,
absolutely
keep track of everyone's name. And so one day I decided, look, I'm gonna record a conversation. I want you to just say everything, just tell me everything about the family. This was in 2001.
Okay.
2002. This was 2002. And so I had this footage, a couple hours of us talking, and she would remember dates she had this computer for a brain. And she was also hilarious. Just really sharp wit. And so then I kind of sat on those recordings for a very long time, and then about I'd say pre-pandemic, I decided, I'm gonna kind of figure this out a little bit more. And I did a DNA test.
Okay.
Thank goodness I chose Ancestry.com and not 23andMe.
Okay.
And so based on the little that I knew, I was able to kind of piece a few things together
But I was at this stage, there was still a lot about our family that I really didn't know. I still don't know.
Yeah.
But I do remember, like, my father has since passed away. He passed away about 10 years ago.
I'm sorry
But
to hear that, brother.
before
Still.
he passed, I remember telling him, because he never knew who his father was.
Really?
And then so I was on the phone with my dad, and I told him, like, no, your father was, this was who he was. And my dad was like, really? Like, what was his name again? Like, it was he. I wish that he had lived long enough to kind of learn more about what I've been discovering over the years. But
Absolutely.
through Ancestry.com, Ancestry told me that I was related to Vivian Glover.
Okay.
And so I thought, I'll just write her, see what
Yeah.
happens, you know? And so I did that. And then about a month later, she wrote me and she said, this is so funny because I never checked this message. Like,
Oh, really?
It was just, she randomly double checked something. She explained the reason why, but it was just a chance that she did. And we've since become very close. And it was really through Vivian that I met your father.
Oh, wow.
And so that's kind of brought us to the pandemic. And I remember during the pandemic, my family, we were down in Tucson, Arizona with my wife's mother's
Family. Yeah.
And we were there for like 6 months. And during that time, we had a group Zoom with Vivian and David. And
Okay.
it was, I mean, it was wonderful. I mean, you know, when you meet people through a website,
Yeah.
you know, and essentially, you know, you might be like, is this true? But
Yeah.
you realize that you're related to you know, to the same people.
Yeah.
And speaking of my biological grandfather, you know, my dad didn't know who he was. I didn't know his name. Bernice told me his name.
Okay.
And then I meet your dad, and your dad's like, oh, everybody knew Mac.
Yeah.
like he was like, yeah, he was like the cool uncle, you know.
Yeah.
So everybody knew him but us.
Oh man, that's I mean, that's so wild just to think. But yeah, you continue, Jeffrey. But that's how my dad was. But he was a historian himself and he was always trying to document and keep everybody, try to meet everybody. And I'm so glad that you two were able to get in touch, because my dad was such a very special man who I think at our core, he was the one that kept the family together. He was like that person who was always trying. He literally, in his last days, he just sat me down, going through every picture he had. I'm talking about going back as far as he could, saying, hey, this is family, this is family. Jeffrey, when he found you, he was I can't tell you how excited he was. And then I love Vivian as well. She's been a great cousin. She's a great cousin as well.
Yeah. No, we've become very close over the years. And whenever I come down to South Carolina to play, which is, you know, I'd never played there before.
Yeah.
Happening more and more. I was just there last week.
Actually, oh, really?
In Sumter.
Oh my gosh, I was down here.
Oh,
it's a throw stone away.
Yeah, man.
No.
I'll just, you know, if you're in, but I'll see you in New York for sure.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, we've become very close over the years.
Okay. Well, Jeffrey, thank you for sharing that part. I'm gonna get back more into like that in itself. I can only imagine what's that's like. Well, you kind of told me, like, whenever I'm sorry, what's your name? Beatrice, the one that was like your grandmother?
Bernice.
It's amazing that Bernice kind of took over that motherly figure. Not motherly, excuse me. That almost that grandmother, that family that you guys were probably longing for a long time. And I think that's so special that, like, by God's good grace, you decided to look into that stuff as well. You did the Ancestry.com instead of 23andMe, and that got you connected to so many people out there. Because I mean, I can only imagine how y'all must have felt, even your dad, not knowing, you know.
Well, I mean, I think in so many ways that's something that connects probably almost everybody in the Black community, right?
Yeah.
Like there's this disconnection with where you come from. Right. There's no, you know, just a few weeks ago, I was in a project in Omaha, of all places, Omaha, Nebraska. And I was talking to our sound engineer, who we've been working with for about 15 years. He's
Mhm.
brilliant at what he does. And he calls himself jokingly the Sound Viking. Even though
Okay.
his family's from Ireland. And so a group of us were like, were there Vikings in Ireland? He's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, oh yeah. He's like, I have a book that goes back 1,000 years that traces my family, you know, back
Wow.
1,000 years. And I was like, I want a book. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
we all
seriously.
want a book. We all
Yeah.
want to know where we came from. And so there's that kind of, I think that people in our community walk around with that. There's like a void.
Yeah, there is.
And so we, you know, some people fill it with some things, the right things, the wrong things, but it sure was nice to kind of get some answers. And I was joking with my wife because we don't quite have a book, but this does affect you, by the way.
Okay.
So Vivian, before Great Aunt Bessie passed away, she interviewed her.
Really?
So dissimilar from my interview with Bernice, but she had a whole bunch of written notes that ended up in, you know, her daughter Anne's home. And
Really?
Anne is moving back to England. And so she kind of came across these papers, and Vivian put on her producer hat, and she kind of unlocked a few doors and was able to figure out who Carrie Hauser Friday's father was.
Really?
Who was white. And of course, the records are much easier once you figure out once the person's white.
Yeah, exactly.
And she was able to trace that family all the way back to 1465.
Holy smokes.
In Germany.
Really?
Yeah, Germany and Switzerland. So
if you would have told me that was in our history line, I wouldn't believe it.
I wouldn't either, because according to my DNA, there was no German.
Really?
DNA. So
yeah.
But I guess maybe there must be, but just such small amounts.
Yeah.
It just didn't show up.
Okay. Well, Jeffrey, this is amazing. I'm mind blown. I'm so glad that you came on here today. I was excited to see you and finally get a chance to meet you, because with my dad gone, I kind of carried on his. I've always been like my dad. Me and my dad are almost one and the same. My mom actually had a question for you. I think she knows a Zeigler. You do pronounce it Zeigler, right?
Zeigler.
Zeigler.
Do you pronounce it Zeigler?
Well, we always said Ziegler, like a, but it's wrong.
Okay.
I know it should either be Ziegler or Zeigler, but we just say Ziegler.
Well, the reason that isn't that name German?
It's a German Jewish name.
Exactly. When I was in elementary school, I went to school with this guy called Alan Ziegler, and he had the strangest last name for a black kid. And I kept, and I remember him, and he's from South Carolina. I grew up in South Carolina, but left later on. And I think I said that name as in school. I always said, you have the strangest last name.
Write it down. Go ahead.
And his name is Alan. And I think he might be kin some kind of way, because he had the most unique name in my elementary school.
Do you know if his last name was spelled Z-E-I or Z-I-E?
I can't quite remember.
But I mean, how many were there?
You have to imagine in elementary school, and you're seated by alphabetical order. And then that Ziegler came up, and I said, boy, you have the last name Z. Wow. And I said, so you're going to always be last. That's what I would say.
It's rough. You're either last or first.
But no other person in our community had that last name. And so that was what I remembered, and I told Brandon about it yesterday. But anyway, go ahead.
Jeffrey, Jeffrey, did you get the whole name?
Alan.
Alan. Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna look up Alan, because there are it's not the most common name.
Yeah, it really is.
And as far as the name is concerned, I've only been able to trace it back to James Ziegler, or what I love is that this even shows up in the historical record. People call him Bubba Jim.
Okay.
But I don't know who Bubba Jim's parents were. But one thing I was going to add is that there are a lot of Zieglers in Pennsylvania.
Really?
Both Z-I-E and Z-E-I.
Okay.
But I think it's a different fragment of the family. I like a very distinctly different strand of the family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, man, that's amazing. It's so interesting the fact that Dad was such. I love history. I'm a history buff, trying to figure things out. Dad was the same way, and it seems like you're the same way as well, which is a small world. Maybe that's a genetic thing in our genetic makeup. But Jeffrey, the other question I was going to ask you. So, how did you end up becoming? How did you get interested in doing the cello? What your love for music and your journey through music and the places you played? So, I would love for you to tell us that.
I mean, luck.
Yeah.
I would have to say, so, you know, growing up in California, my parents were always very encouraging me with music. They weren't musically talented in any way. They didn't play an instrument. They did love music.
Okay.
My dad loved jazz, and he loved musicals.
Oh, really?
I think I've probably seen both Jesus Christ Superstar and Fiddler on the Roof, maybe, you know, 500 times each. I don't know.
Oh,
I have it memorized, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were always surrounded by music, and so it was wonderful that they were always so encouraging. But when I was about 7 years old, of course I'm old enough that there was music in the public schools. I was involved in this workshop where we got to play the recorder and sing and scratch on the violin and things like that. And at the end of the program, the person who was teaching violin, I think she probably asked everybody in the program, but she asked if anyone wanted to take cello lessons. And I remember my mom, she asked me if that's what I wanted to do. And I said, sure, what's the cello? Like, I didn't know what it was. You know, people always ask, like, does the instrument choose you or do you choose the instrument?
Interesting.
This is a situation where it was really neither, because, you know, I had no understanding of what the instrument was. But there was probably a reason why I stuck with it. There's probably something that I really loved about it. That being said, when I first started playing, it was just something that I did. And I knew that it was good for me, like taking my medicine. But what I really wanted to do is I wanted to be a professional baseball player.
Oh, really? You're great at baseball too?
I played, Little League baseball, soccer. And I really enjoyed that. Actually, I'm really glad that I didn't go that track, because I would have been long retired by now.
Yeah.
I'd be like a coach somewhere.
Yeah.
But then it was like around middle school, I started to get more serious about music. But I think that in a way, it's a good thing and a bad thing. I was surrounding myself with a lot of young musicians who were quite serious. And I was playing in the San Francisco Youth Orchestra.
Wow.
My teacher at the time was a cellist in the San Francisco Symphony. And so I was sort of like near a high level of music, but I knew nothing. Like my friends would go to like the conservatory, San Francisco Conservatory pre-college, and they were already studying like music theory and music history, and I knew nothing. It was all intuitive. And then around like my junior year, I guess, in high school, my teacher she just said, look, you know, you might want to consider music for a career. And I at that point, I never thought that I was good enough, you know, to do something like that. And what I learned later on, I didn't actually know this. I knew that my parents were very hesitant about encouraging me to go down this path, because even though they wanted me to study music, it's like, whoa, how are you going to make a living? Like, what? You have to get a real job. Like, what's going on here? But what I learned recently, because I was long story, but I was playing a concerto with an orchestra where my teacher was actually playing in the orchestra.
Really?
And she told me something I didn't know about that time, but she had a conversation with my parents, just the three of them. And she told me my parents were just really, they just couldn't see it. They just didn't understand what that would mean for me. And she said that, you know, but your dad did something that I never would have expected. He actually took a class at the local junior college. It's Ohlone College over there in Fremont. He took a music appreciation class because he wanted to understand music more. And I remember my dad taking that class, but I didn't know that that was the reason why he did it.
Oh,
Yeah, that's so sweet, man. That's
wonderful.
And they let me do it. I talked them into it. I told them, look, I mean, kind of like being a dancer, you know, you have to develop all of your skills as young as possible. And as it was, I was already behind all my peers. I was very much behind. So I told them, look, let me give it a shot. And if it doesn't work out, I can go back to school and get a real degree.
Yeah.
But it's harder the other way around. I can't get a real degree and then go into
absolutely
too late. So they let me do it, and I'm a very stubborn person and persistent, and yeah, here I am.
Jeffrey, well, before your brush, first off, that's amazing. You're stuck. I wouldn't call it stubbornness. It was drive. Or if someone tells you can't do something, you're not only proving to yourself, you're proving to yourself that you can do it. You know you can do it, but you got to show people sometimes too.
Yeah.
But that's incredible. You're almost like a prodigy in the fact that even though you started later than everybody else, you've beyond already caught up. In fact, you're in the league of your own. Oh, it's okay to. I mean,
Some people would say I'm playing my own sport. I don't know.
you are playing your own sport. I mean, because you're up. I've seen the videos; they're just absolutely beautiful, and like you even being on stage. From what I've seen, you being on stage, it's you, and you're. I've seen several performances of yours, and you're there by yourself. Or I mean, you're not by yourself, but you are in that the spotlight is directly on you, on a big stage of Lord knows how many people are back there. What is that? I know what it feels like because I'm on TV, but for you in those moments, what is it that you were, I guess, feeling, or what is it like for you knowing that you've taken this journey? You started later, you stuck with your gut, you followed your dreams, and now you're here in these moments. This is your Super Bowl in each of those moments.
Yeah. I was actually going to say, like, speaking of being on TV, I think that being on TV is harder, right? Because you're not, you know that there are people out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the people in the room. There's people
yeah.
interacting with, but you know that there are way more people on the other side of the lens.
Jeffrey, you mean, so actually, Jeffrey, you know what's crazy? I used to when I first started, I don't think about the people that are watching it. When I first started, I was nervous about, because there's like 60 people behind the camera. But I ended up working those nerves out. It was more about the people that are immediately there. But that was back in the day, but not anymore. I don't even, crazy part, I don't even, when I'm working now, as you would know, it's you, just like it's you in that instrument, it's me and that actor. And I'm in that world.
Yeah.
So it actually, what you're doing is way harder. I cannot play an instrument to save my life. Trust me. You're a league above us. Trust me.
Well, let's make an agreement. Let's not switch.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Absolutely.
But, or let's switch, and that would be a really fun video to make. That would.
That's like years. That would take years upon years. I did like the guitar, but I just, some things happened. And I ended up not being able to play the guitar. Basically, my aunt broke the guitar by accident.
By accident.
Yeah.
So, Jeffrey, how was it for you to leave the West Coast and you went to school in New York? Is that correct?
Yeah, upstate New York.
And to leave home at such an early age, and then how was that for you without your parents? And then to go from that nice weather where you were to that cold weather in New York. Tell me about that process and meeting people and getting out of your comfort zone, because a lot of kids need to know how to get out of your comfort zone and just make it without your parents being there.
Yeah. You know, there was definitely some growing pains, you know. I think at the time I was very excited and feeling a sense of adventure, and looking back, it's like, yeah, no, I was an immature kid. I had a lot to figure out, and I must have been really annoying to be around, et cetera, et cetera. But that's all part of the growth too. You know, you find this a lot, you know, with a lot of family dynamics. You know, there's the kid that stays in the there's the kid that leaves.
Yeah.
Like my brother stayed. My brother still lives in California. And I was the kid that left. You know, my brother went to college just up the road. Actually, a really great school. He went to Berkeley.
Oh, wow.
But it's just like, 20 minutes up the road.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to go all the way to the East Coast. I'm going to go far away. And I loved it. I loved being away. I loved being in a completely foreign environment. You know, in a way, thanks to global warming, the weather's not as bad as it used to be. But when I went to Rochester, it was cold.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I would say, I used to joke that the sun would set around Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
And then you wouldn't see it until like the week before juries, which was, like our final exams in the summer. And it would be like, I would say on average 15 degrees.
Holy smokes.
And it was good for me because you couldn't do much. So I practiced a lot. I spent a lot of time studying, made some really good friends. And just lots of trials, lots of fire,
Yeah.
And I'm happy for it in many ways. Even though I grew up in California, I think in many ways, personally and musically, I grew up in Rochester.
Oh, okay.
I always wanted to go back home. That was always my dream.
Yeah.
It took me a long time. But then finally, when I joined the Kronos Quartet, I did move back to California. I moved back to San Francisco for about 8 years. And, that saying, I don't know who said it, but you can never really go home. But yeah, California, it's just not the same. Or maybe I'm not the same. I mean, I think it's both. I think California's changed, but I've also changed too. And yeah, I'm a New Yorker now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, I want to hear more about your creative ability, because I understand you were talking about a quartet group that you're in. And in fact, I looked at your impressive curriculum vitae, and I said, listen, this guy is brilliant.
Yes.
And you have accomplished so much. So tell us about how you got into this particular group, and some of your travels, and some of your creative music, the music you've created out there.
Absolutely.
I mean, I always thought that my career would be in chamber music. Chamber music being, without a conductor, small groups, maybe a trio, maybe a quintet, maybe a quartet. I've always loved that kind of inner dynamic, and probably because of the way that I was raised. As I mentioned earlier, I was raised in a quartet, with my brother and my parents. So so it's a very familiar dynamic. And I always loved contemporary music. I think that love, that spark, started growing when I was in high school with my teacher from the San Francisco Symphony, Margaret Tate. He played in a string quartet with other members of the orchestra, and they would give regular concerts around the city, and they would always play some standard repertoire, but also some really adventurous repertoire. And I was always really excited about, what the heck am I listening to? That's really cool. And
yeah,
I was always fascinated with that. And I think I still have that fascination with things that are new. Although I think that fascination has kind of grown more towards just kind of personal interaction. I really enjoy working with other composers, other creative people, and create something that's very new and very fresh. So it's less about doing something that's bizarre and crazy. It doesn't have to be bizarre and crazy. It just has to be fresh and new and meaningful too. Something that has meaningful in our world, in our society, in our culture. But when I was on my way out of school, in graduate school, I joined my first string quartet. Called the Corigliano Quartet. I was still in grad school at this point at Indiana University.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, my teacher, I was studying with legendary cellist Janos Starker at the time, and he's if you think of Star Wars, like, I studied with Obi-Wan Kenobi. That was
wow, yeah, I got you. I always use Star Wars references.
Right. So my Obi-Wan Kenobi was Paul Katz. He was in the Cleveland Quartet. He was also a very well-known cellist. But then then I went to Starker, and that was like I studied with his teacher.
Yeah. So you had like Yoda too.
Yeah. So he was Yoda. So
Okay,
that was my Yoda phase, and I loved working with him. He was tough, but he was just a beautiful human. And,
Jeffrey, one question for you, Jeffrey. Where was when at Indiana you had Giannis is his name, right?
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. When you went to go study with Yoda, where was that you study with Yoda at?
Yoda's at IU, or was at IU.
Gotcha.
He passed away. He was like 75 years old when I studied with him.
Oh wow, okay.
At IU, but Paul Katz, who is actually now in his 80s, but I studied with him near the end of my time at Eastman, and then when I went down to Rice University.
Oh man,
because he at that point the Cleveland Quartet was disbanding, and he was going through a change in his life, and so he moved to
Texas.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, I'm loving it. Keep continuing, man. I'm loving this journey.
So yeah, that quartet, the Corigliano Quartet, we played both standard and contemporary literature. We were named after the composer John Corigliano.
Oh, okay.
And we won the Fish-Off competition. We did some international competitions. We had management. We made recordings, and then we ended up, after IU, we went to Juilliard for a residency.
Oh, great!
And that was my my final stop. I was in school a long time, and that was the last place that I was. And
at Juilliard. At
Juilliard, yeah.
That's Jeffrey. That's beyond impressive.
Well, it was only there for 1 year though. So.
But that doesn't matter. Like still the fact that you were Robin Williams, I don't even think finished, or Christopher, but it's the fact that you were there. Continue, Jeffrey. Sorry, I'm blown away.
And that was I jokingly say that's the first time I moved to New York. I think I've moved to New York like 4 times in my life. But yeah, we eventually left. We got a job in Pennsylvania. It just, for various reasons, we decided it wasn't the right fit. And so I left the quartet and moved back to New York with my girlfriend at the time. Now my
yeah.
And I decided that's it. I'm done with string quartets. Never again. I'm just going to focus on being in New York and freelance.
Okay.
And that lasted about 6 months. And then I got a phone call to sub with the Kronos Quartet, and I thought, wow, at that point it was just going to be a summer job, and I thought, wow, that's like the coolest summer job ever.
Yeah.
That summer job lasted about 8 years.
Okay.
And I, had to move to San Francisco, and then my wife and I got married, and we had a kid, and but it was tough because the quartet, Kronos is still a quartet, but it's a very different group right now. I would say, they still have the same mission. They still do similar work, but just on a much smaller scale.
Absolutely.
Kind of like a part-time role. When I was in the quartet, we were, it was more than full-time. I mean, we were on the road probably 6 months a year.
Okay, wow.
And, constantly recording new commissions. It was rehearsing every single day. Like it was a lot. So even when I was home from touring, I wasn't really home.
Yeah, you're working.
So when the opportunity came up for my wife to take on the opening of a new space, which eventually became National Sawdust.
Oh wow!
In Brooklyn, we decided, okay, well that's maybe that's the right time for me to leave the quartet and move back to New York.
Absolutely.
For time number 3.
Yeah.
And so that's how that happened.
Jeffrey, that was so beautiful. One thing I didn't realize it so much how we're kindred souls, because I'm the one that in my family that went far away.
Yeah.
And I was looking forward to the adventure of being in that new space. But also I find it so important. I'm glad you started mentioning it. Is the fact that, like, yes, you're on stage. I think that's great that you're on stage. But what people don't understand is, even when I'm on TV shows, I'm like, that's not what's the most important thing to me. What most important to me is the fact that how many auditions did I go on? How much sacrifice did I make to get to where I'm at? That's the important part.
Lots of no's, lots of rejection.
Yeah. And that's what, and Jeffrey, I know you know that firsthand. Like it's you, that's what I want people to know. That's what's so important. So with you telling that, you had to go with those, you had to deal with those things too.
Yeah.
Like I can only imagine the level of the caliber that you're competing against, but it's also great competing against that caliber, because then you realize that, hey, we're really Anakin Skywalker here, you know?
Yeah.
Or Luke Skywalker.
I really wanted to be Han Solo though.
Oh yeah. Space Cowboy.
Hey, Jeffrey, Brandon, did you finish, Brandon?
Yeah, Mommy,
hey,
you're good. Yeah.
Jeffrey, when did you know that you really had I call it the it factor?
Yeah.
The it factor. You knew you had it. You knew you could do this, and you knew you could take it and get paid for it. So I call it the it factor.
Absolutely.
When did you realize that? At what age?
I'd say maybe a couple weeks from now. No, I'm just joking.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I have I guess there's kind of two categories of creative people. There's the people who walk in the room and say, "Of course," and "You're welcome," you know.
Yeah.
And then there's the people with imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And that's me.
Really?
I still have imposter syndrome.
Oh.
I think, you know, just like last week, I was soloing with an orchestra, actually just before coming down to Sumter. And, you know, like the orchestra is filled with so many people that I consider friends, actually. It's a group in New York. And, you know, a lot of great quartet players, a lot of people who, you know, I've actually known for many decades, and who are, I consider at the top of their game, terrific collaborators. I've played with them in many different situations. They've gone to schools that I didn't go to, like they went to Curtis. They went to festivals that I wasn't able to even get an audition for, like Marlboro, you know, places like that. But I was the one soloing, you know, and it's like, it's, you know, these things work out as strange ways. I do remember the first concert I played with Kronos. It was up in Seattle. And I was very nervous, you know, because, you know, I'd played important concerts before. And this was not like the biggest stage Kronos played on. It was, you know, I think it was at the University of Washington or something. I can't even remember what hall we were playing in. But I do remember that the opening of the concert, the first piece that we were playing, I was playing by myself.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I got to start this by myself, right?
Yeah.
And I remember my headspace at that point. I just kind of like nerves. I just kind of put it aside, and I was thinking, imagining I was diving off a diving board. And I was like, okay, let's just do this. You know, what I tell students, it's like when you dive off a diving board, you have two choices. One choice, the wrong choice, leads to a lot of pain. So your best option is at that point to just focus and just do the task at hand, do the of your ability, and just focus on that. Like your life depends on it, because you don't want to end up with, you know,
belly flop or
belly flopping, or worse, right? So and that's sort of been my attitude, like with the quartet, like when we would play the Concertgebouw or, you know, Carnegie Hall or wherever. I was like, okay, let's do this. Like, just do it. Like, don't, you know, I can dwell on it. I can worry about it. I'm just going to do it. And, but do I have imposter syndrome? Absolutely. I mean, I'm grateful for every opportunity that I've ever had. I think, you know, maybe other people who had more opportunities when they were younger, you know, because again, I didn't know any better. My parents didn't know any better. I certainly wasn't practicing 5 hours a day when I was 10 years old. I was playing soccer, you know, with my friends. So there are certain things that I do find in my own skill set. I think, if I had to be honest, I don't think come as naturally to other of my colleagues who were sort of forced to do more of that kind of work at a very young age. So I've always had a very you know, my Yoda, my Yoda,
Yeah.
Darker, he would call it professionalism, but I've always
Okay.
had this kind of mindset that, you know, I'm not going to allow myself to not to fail, but to say no. I'll
Yeah.
Other people can say no, but I'm not going to say no to myself. So I'm going to show up to the first rehearsal, not the concert, the first rehearsal. I'm going to show up prepared. I'm going to practice. I'm going to, you know, be collegial and like everything. I'm just going to do everything I can to present my work in
Yeah.
a way. And even still, there's a lot of rejection. You know,
Yeah.
you have to kind of roll off the punches. I would tell my students that, like, you take a violinist who maybe won the Queen Elizabeth competition or some major competition. For every competition that person won, there's probably about 50 competitions they lost.
Oh.
You know, and but they're known for that one, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's how it goes.
so and it's like the lottery. You know, you got to play to win. You know,
Yeah.
if you don't play, you don't win. So
Absolutely.
you gotta put yourself up. You have to put yourself on stage. You have to put yourself in front of the camera to fail.
Yep.
In order to even have the opportunity to have any chance of success. So.
Man, Jeffrey, I don't throw this term around at all, but I do. When I say it, I mean it. You were totally kindred souls. You and I are kindred souls, because everything that you were saying, I've been through in my level of stuff.
Yeah.
But except for the imposter syndrome, I never actually had imposter syndrome. But there was times when I was nervous. But with you saying when you arrived, you felt that you arrived when you played with the Kronos. Is it what it's called? Is it
Kronos Quartet? Yeah.
When you first played with Kronos, my moment when I realized I had arrived was I had left LA because I in 2016, 2017, quick story. I had left LA because I've been blessed to do like 19 roles at the time. But I realized that some of the stuff that my agent was getting me called in for wasn't, I knew I could do more. I knew I was more than pool boy number 6, even though I wasn't just booking pool boy number 6. So I went to New York, and I went to New York because I felt that the best talent in the United States was in New York, and I wanted to compete. I worked in Atlanta, I worked in Miami, I worked in LA for years. I wanted to go compete with the best. So I went to New York and I performed at these competitions, and I always made sure to go first because I wanted to set the bar so high that everybody would have to catch that bar. So I would always go first. And I remember there's this one casting associate, I'm not gonna mention what her name is, but I love her to death. But she was just saying how she had a certain view of people even though I'm from the East Coast, I'm Virginia. She had a certain view, and I came there. She looked at my resume. So they looked at my resume. They gave me hard scenes from it, which I was ready for. And I ended up getting, so she said all this stuff. So I'm like, all right, I perform my scenes. I get called in for Blue Bloods. I see her there. And I'm like, hey, I was performing for you. She's like, yeah, I know, dummy. Who do you think called you in? And she gave me a hug. And I had earned her respect, which I appreciate. But the moment to bring it back fast, the moment I realized I arrived was I was in Atlanta. I was playing Marine, and I was yelling at this character that was down the street. But all the cameras were on me. It started on me. And it was all about me at that point. I had finally been the lead of this thing. And it was at that moment that I realized I had arrived. Just right before I was about to yell to her, I saw everybody. And in that episode, you can see it. You can tell that, hey, like, B is the guy now. I'm Anakin or Luke Skywalker. Actually, I felt like Obi-Wan Kenobi at that point, to be honest. He's always been my guy.
Nice.
But for you, I appreciate you saying how, in that moment, even though you might have had imposter syndrome, you tell your students, either you do it all the way or you fail. Not fail, but you could get hurt. So I appreciate you just telling us that. And back to you now, Jeffrey. I just want to say that I know.
I mean, but actually, I have so many questions I want to ask you. So I know the questions are for me, but it's like this. I'd love to.
Absolutely. We're here for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess my question is, so I guess, you're thinking about moving back to, or you are going to be moving back.
Yes.
To, like, what was the impetus for that?
I've always wanted to go to New York. I said I've always wanted to call myself a full-on New Yorker. I've lived in New York twice now. I lived
Sure?
I'm positive. It's always been in my core. I have reached a point in my career where I realize where I'm at level-wise in my career. Just like I realize that I'm capable of being A-list. And I realize that I'm also able to be a lead of a series, but at the same time, I love all the places that I filmed. I love the positions they put me in. Every casting director that's hired me for a role, I've always delivered, and I've always, in whatever kind of capacity it is. I love playing supporting. I always love being that supporting guy like Han Solo, because Han Solo was able to steal the show, you know, in that scene where he saves Luke in the first movie. So for me, finally making that decision to go to New York, well, the business has died out in LA. It's all left.
Okay, interesting.
So between the strikes really hurt everything, and then the fires happened, and then that kind of put a big nail in that coffin. And then all of them were going to United Kingdom movies and stuff like that. So I've actually been interviewing with agencies to go perform in London. I'm actually ready to not live in New York, but to live in London too. I'm ready to be that international water actor, because they are picking up, they are taking on American actors now. And so I wanted to be able to work both those markets. And it's a quicker flight from New York to London than LA to London.
Exactly, exactly. Can you do accent?
You know what? I will learn it, governor. But I'm willing to put that work in. That's one of the things just like you have to do. I'm always trying to better myself or practice. Even the audition for me is the game. The Super Bowl is just when I'm performing there, I'm doing the job. But do I have those nerves sometimes? Yeah, I do. Do
you prefer being behind a camera or being on stage?
So I actually, I prefer being in front of the camera. I love camera. I'm not a Broadway guy, although I'm actually going to New York to pursue Broadway too.
Nice.
Because I wanted to, it's always important to keep leveling yourself up. And if I feel like that I've accomplished so much in my movie and TV business, which I still love, I want to be able to compete with the best of the best on Broadway, which I know is a new level of difficulty.
Very different. I would imagine,
they are.
Like for music, it's the difference between performing and making a recording.
Yeah, completely different.
Yeah.
It is. And there's a hard transition for Broadway people it's a lot harder for them because they're trying to reach, as you know, the people in the back of the I guess in the back of the auditorium would be right.
And then the director's like, stop yelling, please.
Yeah, yeah. You have to be intimate. So yeah, it is that switch. But you can, as I said, good thing about art and this beautiful thing about being an artist is you can always learn more. And Jeffrey, just like you were saying, with working with these amazing people like the Yoda, like the Obi-Wan Kenobi, every set I'm on, I always try to stay as close to set as possible because I am always leveling up. I shot FBI in October, November. Being around those actors who are where I want to be at, I'm always learning from them.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, man. But back to, what's that?
I can't wait to see you here.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited for it. Like I can't move fast enough.
Actually, one other question: do you know where you're looking for an apartment?
So I'm looking at Queens. I really love Queens, but I'm not opposed to anywhere. Wherever I can find a place, pretty much.
Okay.
If you know anybody, what's that?
We're over in Williamsburg.
Oh really? Oh, Brooklyn. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, if you know of anyone who's looking for a person, let me know. I said I'm open for everything.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, there's always like where we live. There are always like rentals. I don't know if you want to buy or rent, but
rent. I don't have that deep pockets yet. Rent. Yeah, I'm a renter.
Like depending on what you're looking for. People. Most of the people, I would say, probably most of the people who own the units in our building rent out their apartments. So
oh my gosh, thank you, Jeff. You're a blessing. I would totally live in Brooklyn.
Yeah. So yeah, just if I can help in any way, I can send you, because every now and then I also get little like requests from other of the units.
Oh, please do, Jeffrey.
Listserv. I can send you what we have.
Jeffrey, you're already a blessing just being on here today, but please do. That would be amazing. I said I don't mind. I love Brooklyn too. I'm not opposed to anything. I love Brooklyn too. All of our studios are down in Brooklyn. I filmed in Brooklyn so many times.
Nice. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, because I was on Blue Bloods for 5 years, so we were in Brooklyn.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, sorry, Mom. I didn't make sure that.
But that's quite all right. I wanted you to get it out. You can see how excited Brandon gets. He is so headed to New York and so ready for it. But one thing I noticed about Brandon, when we would go on vacation, soon as he gets into New York City, he lights up like those billboards. I'm telling you. His energy comes, it flows, and I know that's the right stomping ground for him now. So we're excited
like that. Well, you know what? The first time I ever visited New York, I loved it. Like I heard the hum of the city, and I thought, okay. And then when we started, I was with some friends, and we were walking around, and I thought, wow, like I loved the anonymity. Like you can do anything.
Yeah.
Literally, like you can be anybody, you can do anything. Like it's
absolutely
so it's liberating.
Yeah.
I'm so glad about that housing thing, Brandon, because
Oh yeah, that's clutch.
but Jeffrey, what I want to mention to you, have you ever had to create a piece for a movie or for a TV program?
Yeah. There have been a few films that I've been
Oh
in.
really?
Oh, good.
Yeah. I mean, like some film scores. I don't know if you ever saw The Fountain, but the Darren Aronofsky film.
I haven't seen it. It's not
Oh,
the
wow.
one with Hugh Jackman, is it?
Yeah, Hugh
Oh,
Jackman.
okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, that one it was so many years in the making. That film probably didn't do as well as it probably should have, but it's a beautiful story.
Hmm.
But Kronos, they did before I joined the quartet. They did like Requiem for a Dream,
Oh wow.
and then after I left, they did Noah. So they did a lot of films with Darren.
Okay.
But there's like this one project that I did, which was almost like as far as the creative process, like a reversal of how it's typically done.
Mhm.
About the Colorado River by this film director, Murat Eyüboğlu, who's a
Okay.
filmmaker. But it's more like it's not a typical film. It's very composer focused.
Mhm.
So each chapter of the film had a different composer,
Really?
and I, with this ensemble called Room Full of Teeth. But what happened was each composer wrote a piece, like a concert piece,
Mhm.
and so instead of editing the music to fit the film was edited to fit the music.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unique.
And it's I mean, maybe because I'm a musician, I think it's a beautiful film.
Yeah.
And it's still airing sometimes on PBS,
Okay.
but it's yeah, check it out if you.
I definitely
What is the
will.
name of it? Repeat that. Would you repeat the
It's
name of the
called
movie?
The Colorado.
Okay, the Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Jeffrey, I had a question for you. Whenever you're around, kind of like Hans Zimmer is one of my favorite. Hans Zimmer, John Horner, I think his name is, and then like Hans Zimmer, for instance, like
Yeah.
it's kind of like he sees or hears music. I don't know. Is your mind kind of like that too when it comes to music or thinking of stuff, or how would you say describe like if you ever walk in the street like, huh, you know what, that would be.
I mean, I don't I think a lot in music.
Mhm.
But the meaning of it, I guess I would just say that the more music I learn, the more I play it, the more I think about it, the more I study it, the less I understand it.
Okay.
Because it's so abstract, and
Mhm.
and I find that fascinating. But I might play three notes, and it may mean something for you. It'll mean something differently between both of you.
Yeah.
Your memories, like it's why does our spirit, our mind, why do these sounds trigger certain emotions?
Mhm.
It's hard to know,
Okay.
but um, I like to joke that, like, 20,000 years ago, two people in a cave, like one banged some rocks together and the other caveman said, "Oh man, I know how you feel."
Yeah.
Like I don't know why music communicates the way it does, but
Yeah. Well, and I have one more question for you too, Jeffrey. Kind of since you're like, even though Anakin went kind of well, Anakin, he raised Ahsoka, but let's talk about like, say, now that you're like Luke Skywalker, because you have learned from Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi, you learned from them both. You as a teacher, what advice would you have for anyone that is pursuing music? Let's even say outside of your students, because the route you've taken is one that has been beautiful. Just hearing about it today, what kind of advice would you give for someone who might have been like someone in your shoes, or anyone out there that's thinking about?
I mean, my path has been very unconventional. I like to The way that I would describe it is that there's like two main paths. There's one that's very conventional,
Yeah.
playing an orchestra, something to teach in the college, and then there's something that's a little bit more challenging.
Mhm.
My path has been more equivalent to taking a machete and kind of walking in that direction, hacking through the
Hacking with.
jungle, and it's much harder, in so many ways, because the systems aren't there are no systems built to support it. So
Okay.
Mhm.
and this is for both myself and my wife's career. Like, it's been very challenging in that way. But the good news is, you do this over time, then you've kind of created a niche for yourself so that you're actually doing what you love.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I think, you know, when I talk to young musicians and they ask me like, oh, should I do this? Should I do this? Or I want to do a competition, or maybe I should take auditions. And I always ask them, well, you know, what do you want? And sometimes it's what you want, and sometimes it's what you don't want. You know,
Yeah.
I actually don't want to play in an orchestra. Well, it's like, well, why are you taking orchestra auditions? Well, I feel like I should. Like, wait, time out. Like,
Yeah.
no,
Mhm.
think about this. Like, one good thing about playing in an orchestra is, of course, you have a very regular paycheck. But then a bad thing about playing in an orchestra is that you have absolutely no choice on any repertoire or any musical ideas or anything. And so you have to decide which. There's nothing that's perfect, but you have to find what your priorities are, you know.
Mhm.
And then you have to make a plan, and then you have to implement the plan, and then you have to change the plan because life happens, and then, you know, and that's life, you know, and your
Mhm.
priorities are different. You know, if I were presented with the opportunity to join the Kronos Quartet, not now, but as it was then,
Yeah.
now, then I would say absolutely not, because I'm in a completely different place in my
Yeah.
life. I don't want to be on the road 6 months a year
Yeah.
anymore. And so, you know, when I was younger, I think that I was very um, eager to chase the next shiny object, or try to get this role or this position or win this competition or whatnot.
Mhm.
But now I'm more focused on creating work that I think has impact and
Mhm.
meaning. I like collaborating with people that I respect and who inspire me, and most importantly are not jerks, you know,
Yeah. That's important.
because, you know, there's so many talented people in the world
Yeah.
who maybe aren't the most pleasant to collaborate.
Yeah.
And then you
Mhm.
realize over time that, gosh, there's a lot of talented people that I actually do enjoy working.
Absolutely.
But how do I actually make that work, and how do I actually communicate that to
Mhm.
our community? Because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it's not just me playing the cello. I have to actually communicate, like banging my rocks together. I have to do that with people, with an audience,
Mhm.
with strangers, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't want to waste anyone's time. You know, I want it to
Absolutely.
be good. You know, I want it to be at a high level. I want it to have meaning. I want it to have depth as
Yeah.
well.
Absolutely.
Um, and then hopefully I'm successful at that.
Yeah. Jeffrey, one more thing I want to say for you, man. Sorry, I know you probably got to go pretty soon. So that's why I just say this one thing I was thinking. For me, Jeffrey, I was always about bridging the gap between the East and the West. My goal was always to go to New York. New York's always been my end game.
Yeah.
One thing that we were saying, I felt like when you were talking about like what made me want to make the switch also was the fact that I always felt like a kind of being like a killer whale. And a
Mm.
killer whale, you can't is an apex predator, but you can't keep a killer whale in the pond. And if that pond starts, because it's too big for that, it needs to be out in the ocean. And
Yeah.
like where I was auditioning and stuff for what New York and Atlanta and New Orleans have shown me the caliber of stuff I'm in, which is big time stuff. And that's why, and it's given me the most opportunities. And I know that all the casting directors were fighting for me in Los Angeles and in Los Angeles, they were all fighting for me, but I wasn't always getting called in for what the things that I should have been, like the level of caliber that I'm going for. I was grateful, and they were even fighting for me to get these bigger parts. Hey, Brandon's able to do this, but they're just dealing with politics out in California.
Yeah.
So, so me bridging my gap back when I first did my first movie, which was in Miami, from after LA, that was in Miami, then it was in Atlanta. My goal was always to get back. So the reason I mentioned that with you is, for you, did you ever have when you were called back home from being in New York, how did that make you feel? Did you ever in your side to be like, hey, I've made it because I'm being called back home to work? Did that ever cross your mind, anything like that, or maybe not?
What is home in this
No, I'm
scenario?
talking about like San
California.
Francisco. What's that? No,
It,
so New York, being on the East Coast, I call the entire East Coast home. But me working back in the East Coast when I first was that I accomplished something so difficult to do that I'm being flown over here to work on the East Coast again. Like I've set myself apart. So for you, being in New York at that point, being called back to San Francisco.
Yeah. I thought that it would feel that way. I
Yeah.
thought that I would feel like I was coming home. And it felt familiar, you know, being in the Bay Area. I knew how to be in the
Yeah.
area, but I had changed so much that never really totally felt like home. It was interesting because I felt like other people who lived in San Francisco who were not from there felt more at home than I did.
Okay.
If that makes
sense. And Jeffrey, I kind of mean achievement wise, did you feel did you feel like you had achieved, like, man, I've like made it in a way? That's what I'm trying to say.
I see. I definitely felt like I had achieved something that I never imagined that I would have ever achieved.
Yeah.
And you know, when I left the quartet, that was like 10 years ago. And my friends, they would always, you know, they would tell me like, gosh, either that was a brilliant move or you're crazy. Like, you know, like, why would you leave the Kronos Quartet? Like, that's such a big job. But it's been wonderful, and it's been a good choice. And, you know, quite frankly, just seeing how the trajectory of the quartet, that really that's not the trajectory for me. So so it was good that I was able to kind of move in a different direction these past 10 years. But, you know, these stages, like, I mean, stages, like physical stages, like Circabau, Barbican Center, or wherever, Musikverein, like, you know, these stages are, it's vital to be able to have the experience of performing you know, on those stages. But, you know, also my own, the kind of work that I do is, you know, with my machete kind of walking in a weird direction.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what I found is that even though I do need to have almost like check-ins on those stages, you know, so much of the work that I do is in unusual spaces, old stations or buildings that were designed for some other purpose, or some weird hole-in-the-wall location, or you know, like it's actually really exciting to be able to explore outdoor spaces.
Absolutely.
Spaces that, of course, art galleries and things like that. And you know, this project that I was mentioning in Omaha, it was for an opera that my wife just finished called
Oh, really? Wow! Congratulations to her.
It's an amazing piece, and I know I sound very biased when I say that, but really, it's an incredible piece.
Yeah.
But because the work has a very strong element of disability, like a lot of the cast has a cerebral palsy or and it was for a festival that is about you know, people who are differently abled, people people who are on the spectrum, etc. And so the space where we performed had to be accessible.
Yeah.
And the largest, most accessible place that we can find in Omaha was a gym.
Really?
Yes. So we made this brilliant, profound work written by one of the leading poets in America, Brenda Shaughnessy. It's a fantastic work. It's almost like Blade Runner, and like,
oh wow, okay,
it has all these. It has AI and what's real, and maybe the whole thing was AI from the beginning. Like, it has a really wonderful storyline. But we were in a gym.
Oh wow! Was it recorded?
Was it recorded, Jeffrey?
Well, there was a recording. We're working on fixing it because the sound. I was joking with the sound guy, like, gosh, it sounds like a gym in here. Like, it's not, it's not Carnegie Hall. Like, the sound needs some work, and but we're working.
Oh, great! That would be great for Netflix. I mean,
it would be great
for
sell
that to Netflix. That would be great for you to sell that to Netflix. Teacher, are you a teacher? I heard you say you are a teacher.
Yes.
How many students, and where do you teach? And you don't have to name the places, university, in your home, or whatever.
Yeah, no, I teach at the New School in New York. The music school is called Mannes School of Music. New School University. I've actually been at New School since leaving Kronos 10 years ago.
Oh wow!
Okay,
but I left a few years ago because I took a job at the University of Miami.
Oh wow!
Ross School of Music, but wasn't the right fit, and so I left that job and I came back, and my old boss, Richard Kessler, Dean Kessler, he was like, "You want your old job back?" I'm like, "Okay, fine." So I'm back at Mammoth. And also I teach at a summer festival called Bowdoin International Music Festival up in.
Wow.
Amazing.
Well, Jeffrey, you remind me so much of Brandon's father, David, because you all have that calm spirit. You have a calm spirit. I'm just noticing that about you, and it's so relatable with how David's was. Brandon's dad was. He just had that calm. I call it. It was a spirit that I could relate to, because I'm more as Brandon, excited about everything, and Dave would always kind of keep me level, calm down a bit, and so I feel that through just looking at you and hearing you speak today, Brandon. I don't know if you feel it, but I do.
Yeah, I definitely do. It's a calmness you have to you. Yeah, it's the force, Jeffrey.
I wish I had his voice. My goodness.
Oh man, Jeffrey, me too. You know how much I would work if I had my dad's voice. I'm like, Lord, let my voice just drop so I can sound like James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, if I had, I say that all the time. Even if my dad was alive now, I know he would have been on the show too, because he had such a voice. I would have loved doing all this.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, man. But one of the things I'm trying to do is, because I own the right to his likeness, I'm trying to bring him back through Disney, with his voice, with the voice recording, because I want to make that. I'm trying to work out something with them to do, bring him back. What's that?
I said amazing. That's
yeah. So you actually, on the podcast, I have his voice up already.
I have to check that out.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
But Jeffrey,
one final thing I wanted to add. Oh, Brandon, one final thing. Do you have any pieces of music that we Spotify, where listeners, because we have people from all over, and about how many viewers now?
We're at 8.7 million, Jeffrey. I told you right before I got on. We got 8.7 million in 18 countries and 182 cities around the world.
Yeah. And so if they want to listen to your music, is it something they can download off of Spotify or any of the platforms out there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I can share some links with
Please do, Jeffrey.
Yeah. Okay, great.
And I'll put it with your link. And Jeffrey, I always heard this saying, you've been wonderful today. And Jeffrey, I'm gonna have to have you back on, because I know we're gonna have a bunch of questions. But and you're welcome on anytime too. And please let me know anytime you got something coming up, so I can post it on my story, so it's out there. For people to know. I always heard the saying, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. And,
that's what they say. Yes.
Okay. That's a real thing, I guess, huh?
Well, that's one of the ways. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Practicing helps, but but of course, that's how you get there.
Yeah.
You also want to practice, because once you're there, people are listening. So
yeah.
You want to sound good.
Absolutely. And then, Jeffrey, have you ever played in London before? I just wanted to say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Many times. I haven't been there for a few years, but yeah.
Ever at the Royal, I guess maybe not the Royal Shakespeare, would that be a place, or?
Let's see. Most of where I've played in London, I've played at the Barbican Centre.
Okay.
I've played at Royal Albert Hall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then how about Australia? Ever there?
Yeah, I've been to Australia. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm gonna have to get your full list, Jeffrey. I was so curious. I'm like, you've been around the world, man. And I'm proud of you if no one's told you that. I'm proud of you and your accomplishments, and happy to know that we're related too.
And Brandon, to have a cousin so accomplished, this is just amazing.
It really is.
Well, Brandon, you too. I mean, I've been following what you're doing, and it's like we Fridays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're doing well.
Absolutely. Well, Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you so much for your time. I said welcome back anytime, because I know I'm gonna have more questions for you, and we'd love to have you back anytime, even just talk. Because and then your son, how's your son doing?
He's great. Tommaso, he's 16. He just came back from a school trip in Peru.
Oh wow.
And, yeah, and now he's actually at his last quasi real day at school. They call it field day.
Okay.
He's probably going to play basketball all afternoon with his friends. And,
is he a sports kid, or is he a music kid?
He loves sports. He loves music. He learns, guitar and how to sing and things like that. He's not going to go into music.
Okay.
Although he's been teaching himself piano. So part of me thinks he might become a film composer.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
But he loves he loves math. He loves to cook. That's actually his passion right now is cooking.
Oh.
Really?
Well, one thing you mentioned before we leave, Jeffrey, you mentioned that you wanted to play baseball, or you played baseball when younger.
Yeah.
Would you believe David did too?
Star baseball
Really?
player. Dad,
Yeah, he
Dad
was awesome. He was
Wow.
awesome. He could hit the ball with either hand.
Yeah, switch hitter.
A switch hitter.
Yeah, he used to hit
Yes.
left-handed. He bat left-handed.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes.
throw right.
And so, yeah. And so now our grandson plays baseball as well.
Same
And
way.
so it's just amazing. I'm just looking at some of your traits, and it's just, I appreciate it. It's
Yeah.
brought back a good feeling, and I love that.
Wow.
Yeah.
This has been so special. I can't wait to meet both of you in person.
In New York, brother.
In
It's
New
going
York.
down. And then
Yeah.
Jeffrey, if anyone ever says anything about the apartment, hey, then please let me know.
Okay.
Because I'll be searching.
And like maybe when it's not recording, tell me like, maybe what you're looking for.
Okay.
Mansion, studio, like.
Oh no, just studio apartment. Something I'm not rich. So
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. But Jeffrey, thank you so much, brother. And I'll text you about that and all that kind of stuff too, because I gotta go some places today.
Okay.
Get that oven fixed.
Yeah. No, it's bad. It's like when you turn on the oven, you can smell gas.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Okay. So
All right, well, Jeffrey, give everybody a round of applause.
Okay,
brother.
this is what we do in the end, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Thank you
Mom's
so
clapping
much.
too. We didn't have any clapping. Jeffrey, thank you so much, cuz, and I'll talk to you soon, man. I'll have this back to you later today.
Wonderful.
This is amazing.
All right, thank you, Jeffrey.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye. Jeffrey.